So here's the deal. My wife and I, both early 30s, have been together for almost a decade, married for 6 years. Lately, things have been rocky. Constant arguments over small things, her being too tired for intimacy, me feeling like I'm more of a roommate than a husband. Every time I tried to bring it up, she brushed me off with, "You're overthinking. I'm just stressed." So, like an idiot, I bought into the idea of a vacation fix. You know, the cliché. Go somewhere nice, reset, reconnect, maybe remember why you fell in love in the first place. I thought if we pulled ourselves out of the daily grind, away from work and chores and the same four walls, maybe we'd find each other again. We booked a week-long family vacation at a beach resort. Sun, sand, cocktails, the works. It was supposed to be us against the world again. But from the moment we arrived, I noticed something was off. She wasn't just distant. She was irritable, snapping at me for stupid things like how I parked the rental car, rolling her eyes whenever I suggested activities, constantly glued to her phone even while the ocean was literally sparkling in front of us. And that's when this fix started feeling more like a bandage over a bullet wound. The first couple of days at the resort should have been easy. Breakfast buffets, lounging under umbrellas, maybe a few drinks by the pool. But instead, it felt like I was on vacation alone, with a very cranky roommate tagging along. On the second evening, something happened that stuck in my head. We just finished dinner. Seafood at one of those open-air restaurants where you can hear the waves crashing behind you, and I excused myself to the restroom. When I came back, she was hunched over her phone. Not unusual in itself, but the way she nearly jumped when she saw me, quickly locking the screen and shoving it into her bag, was like a neon sign. I played it cool and didn't say anything. But when we walked back to the hotel, she suddenly became all sweet and touchy, holding my arm and laughing at stupid things. It was so out of character compared to the irritation she'd been showing all day that it felt fake, like she was overcompensating for something I wasn't supposed to see. Later that night, while she was showering, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, I'm not the snooping type, but the preview notification caught my eye before it disappeared. "Can't wait to see you. Don't let him find out." I froze. My stomach dropped straight through the mattress. I told myself maybe it was just a friend joking around, or maybe I misread it. But the way she snatched her phone up the moment she got out of the bathroom, like it was her lifeline, told me I wasn't imagining things. That was the first time I thought, something's really going on here, and I'm trapped in a resort with her, hundreds of miles from home, with no escape. The morning after that text, I woke up before her. The room was still dim, the blinds barely letting in the early light, and she was curled up on her side of the bed, with her phone clutched in her hand like a kid with a stuffed animal. Normally, vacations are when she's up early, excited to plan out the day, snorkeling, shopping, excursions, whatever. But this time, she groaned when I suggested breakfast together and told me to just go without her, because she was too tired. Fine. I went down to the buffet alone, surrounded by families laughing, couples snapping selfies, kids splashing syrup onto pancakes. And there I was, eating scrambled eggs and drinking watery coffee while staring at an empty chair. When I came back, she was gone. No note, no text. Just her swimsuit missing from the hanger in the bathroom and a wet towel on the rack. I figured she'd gone down to the pool without me, so I wandered around looking. Sure enough, I found her, but not relaxing on a chair like she usually would. She was tucked away in a corner cabana, phone pressed to her ear, whispering so low I couldn't catch much. The only words I did make out before she spotted me were, "No, he doesn't know. I'll figure it out." When our eyes met, she jolted like I'd scared her. Then came the irritated sigh, the same one she gives me when I ask her to repeat herself during arguments. "God, can I not even have 5 minutes to myself?" She snapped, hanging up immediately. She waved her phone in the air. "It was just my sister. She's dealing with drama at home. Relax." Except here's the thing. Her sister is the type who blasts every piece of drama all over Facebook. If there was something big going on, I'd have already seen a rant about it online. The whole interaction left a sour taste in my mouth. I tried to shake it off, told myself I was being paranoid, that maybe I was just projecting my insecurities because I wanted this trip to save us. But deep down, something had shifted. I didn't feel like her husband anymore. I felt like some extra luggage she couldn't wait to ditch. By the third day, the weight in my chest was unbearable. Between the mysterious texts, the phone calls, and her constant irritation with me, I felt like I was living in a pressure cooker. And the thing about pressure cookers is they eventually blow. It happened at lunch. We were at one of those beachside cafes, the kind where the tables are basically sinking into the sand. Reggae music playing too loud, waiters in Hawaiian shirts pretending they aren't miserable. I was sipping a beer, trying to ignore the fact that my wife had been scrolling on her phone for the past 20 minutes without saying a word. Finally, I just snapped. "Who keeps texting you?" I blurted out. Not smooth, not planned, just raw frustration bubbling out. She didn't even look up. "Why do you care? Can't I talk to people without you policing me?" I could feel people at nearby tables glance over. The couple behind us actually paused mid-bite of their shrimp skewers. I lowered my voice, but the anger was still there. "Because when I ask, you act like you're hiding something. You're sneaking off, whispering into your phone, making excuses. Do you understand how that looks?" That got her attention. She slammed her fork down so hard it clattered against the plate. "Oh my God. Not this again. You're so insecure it's embarrassing. We're on vacation, and you're ruining it with your paranoia. Do you hear yourself?" It stung. Not just her words, but the way she said them, like I was some pathetic loser making up stories. And the cherry on top. She pushed back her chair, stood up, and stormed off toward the bathrooms, leaving me sitting there alone. Every eye on the patio followed her, then shifted to me. I wanted to disappear into the sand. Nothing makes you feel smaller than having strangers witness your marriage unravel over cheap cocktails and grilled fish. I told myself I'd smooth it over later, that maybe I came on too strong. But a small, ugly voice in my head whispered, "If she's this defensive, maybe it's because you're right." That same evening, after the blow-up at lunch, I decided to cool off on my own. I wandered down to the resort bar by the beach, one of those tiki setups with stools sinking into the sand, fairy lights strung up like stars, the smell of salt and sunscreen mixing with cheap rum. I was halfway through my second beer when this guy struck up a conversation. Mid-40s, sunburned, the type who probably vacations here every year. We chatted about nothing at first. The heat, the beach, how overpriced everything was. He asked if I was there with family, and I said yeah, with my wife. That's when his face shifted a little, like he suddenly realized something. "Wait," he said, squinting at me. "Your wife, is she the one with the long dark hair? Stays by the pool a lot?" I nodded, stomach tightening. He gave this awkward laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. "Oh man, never mind. Forget it." Of course, I pressed him. "No, seriously." "What?" The guy sighed. "Look, I don't want to stir up trouble, but I've seen her around a couple of times. Always on her phone. Once, really late, like past midnight, I saw her walking out near the beach parking lot with some dude. Tall guy, baseball cap, not staff. I figured it wasn't my business, but, well, now I feel like maybe I should mention it." The world tilted for a second. I felt like I'd been shoved underwater. My beer turned sour in my mouth. I managed to croak out, "When was this?" He shrugged. "2 nights ago, I think. Maybe last night too. I didn't get a good look the second time. Sorry, man. Could be nothing. I just thought you should know." I thanked him, or at least I think I did, but honestly I just wanted to vomit right there in the sand. Because while I was lying in bed next to her, thinking she was exhausted and stressed, she'd apparently been sneaking out to meet someone else. And suddenly, every excuse, every flash of irritation, every slammed fork and whispered phone call, it all clicked into place like the last piece of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. That night I couldn't sleep. My head was buzzing with what the stranger had told me, replaying it on a loop until it made me sick. I kept glancing at her beside me, wondering if she was faking her slow, steady breaths, wondering if she was waiting for me to drift off so she could slip away again. Sure enough, around 1:30 a.m., I felt the bed shift. I cracked my eyes open just enough to see her silhouette, quiet, careful, easing herself out of the sheets. She grabbed her phone, slid on a hoodie over her bikini top, and tiptoed toward the door. My heart pounded so hard I thought she'd hear it. But she didn't. She slipped out, soft click of the door behind her. I gave it a minute, then followed. The hallway was dim, just the hum of air conditioners and the faint thump of music from the resort's nightclub down the beach. I padded barefoot to the lobby, then out into the warm, humid night. And there she was, my wife, walking fast across the lot toward the far edge where the resort lights faded into shadow. A tall figure in a baseball cap stepped out from behind the palms. Without hesitation, she went right up to him. They hugged. Not a polite, "Hey, nice to see you" hug. A clinging one, like they'd been starving for each other. I swear the sound of my own pulse drowned out the crickets. I ducked behind a golf cart, hands shaking, stomach in knots. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and yet, deep down I already had. They didn't linger. He put an arm around her waist, and together they started down the dark path toward the beach. She was smiling, really smiling, that wide, unguarded grin I hadn't seen in months, and it hit me like a punch. She hadn't just checked out of our marriage. She'd checked into someone else. I almost confronted them right there, in the sand, under the broken glow of a tiki torch. But something stopped me. Maybe shock, maybe humiliation, maybe the dread of making a scene in front of a stranger who clearly knew more about my wife's heart than I did. So I just stayed there, crouched and trembling, watching them disappear into the night. I went back to the room alone. The air felt thick, like every breath was dragging me deeper into something I couldn't crawl out of. I didn't even bother pretending to sleep. I just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the clock. 1:57 a.m., 2:14 a.m., 2:43 a.m. Each minute stretched into an eternity. Every creak in the hallway made me think it was her. Every shadow under the door made my chest tighten. I kept asking myself what the hell I was doing. Was I really just sitting here, waiting for my wife to come back from sneaking around with another man? Was this marriage worth this humiliation? By 3 a.m. I was sweating. Not from the heat, but from the sick cocktail of anger and dread boiling inside me. I wanted to tear the room apart. Instead, I just sat there in the dark, bouncing my leg like a trapped animal. At 3:27, the door finally clicked open. She slipped inside like a thief, shoes in her hand, hoodie half-zipped. Her hair was messy, cheeks flushed, and when she saw me sitting there, wide awake, lights still off, she froze. For a second, her face showed everything. Guilt, fear, surprise. Then, just as quickly, it hardened into irritation like I was the problem. "Why are you still up?" she whispered harshly, as if I'd been caught doing something wrong. I didn't answer right away. I just kept staring at her, my silence louder than any question I could ask. That's when she rolled her eyes, tossed her shoes down, and muttered, "Jesus, don't start." And that was it, the match to the powder keg. The moment she muttered, "Don't start," something inside me snapped. I wasn't gonna sit there and be treated like the crazy one anymore. "Don't start," I hissed, standing up so fast the bed groaned. "You sneak out in the middle of the night, come back hours later looking like that, and I'm supposed to just shut up and roll over?" She dropped her bag onto the chair with a thud, glaring at me like I'd ruined her evening. "You're paranoid. I just went for a walk. I couldn't sleep. Okay? God forbid I get some air without you turning it into a crime." I laughed, sharp, bitter, ugly. "A walk? 3 in the morning? With who exactly? Because I saw you, out there, meeting some guy. Do you really think I'm that stupid?" Her face flickered, just for a second. That deer in the headlights look again. But she covered it fast, folding her arms across her chest. "You were spying on me? Following me around like some creep? Jesus, no wonder I needed space." The way she twisted it, like I was the villain, made my blood boil. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so it wouldn't carry through the thin walls. "I'm your husband, and you're sneaking around behind my back. Don't you dare try to flip this on me." Her jaw tightened. Then she dropped the nuclear line. Maybe if you weren't so suffocating, I wouldn't need to. It was like she'd slapped me. The words echoed in my skull, louder than the ocean outside, louder than the thump of bass from the club down the beach. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the stranger in front of me, because that's what she was now. Not my wife, not my partner, but someone who could look me dead in the eye and blame me for her sneaking out with another man. The silence that followed was worse than the shouting. I could feel the walls closing in, the weight of being trapped in that hotel room with her, far from home, surrounded by strangers who had no idea my life had just imploded. And in that silence, one thing became brutally clear. This marriage wasn't broken. It was dead. Morning hit like a hammer. I barely slept, maybe an hour or two at most, and when I finally dragged myself down to breakfast, she was already there, sitting at a table in the open-air dining area, sunglasses on, sipping orange juice like nothing had happened. I almost turned around and left, but my pride wouldn't let me, so I sat down across from her. She didn't even greet me, just muttered, "You look like hell," without taking her shades off. I wanted to scream. Instead, I poured myself coffee with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Around us, families chatted, kids whined about cereal, couples fed each other fruit. And there we were, two people radiating so much tension you could slice it with the butter knives on the table. At one point, the same guy from the tiki bar, the one who'd warned me, walked by. He gave me this look. Not pity exactly, but close. Like he knew I knew, and there was nothing either of us could do about it. My wife noticed and immediately got defensive. "What are you glaring at him for?" she snapped, loud enough that the family at the next table turned their heads. "I wasn't glaring at him," I said through clenched teeth. "I was glaring at you." Her chair scraped back as she stood up, throwing her napkin onto the table. "Unbelievable. You're seriously going to make a scene? In front of all these people? Grow up." And then she stormed off. Again. I sat there, humiliated, as whispers rippled around the room. A woman at the buffet line gave me the kind of sympathetic smile you'd give a kicked dog. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. The worst part wasn't even her anger. It was the fact that she wasn't afraid. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. She acted like she was untouchable, like the truth didn't matter, because I had no power left to do anything about it. And in that moment, I realized the vacation fix wasn't fixing anything. It was just giving me front row seats to watch my marriage crumble in paradise. Later that afternoon, I tried to distract myself. I signed up for one of those snorkeling excursions, thinking maybe if I got out on the water, away from her, I could clear my head. Of course, she refused to come, said she was too sunburned, and wanted to stay near the pool. Fine. I went alone. The boat was full of couples and families, all laughing, snapping photos, slathering sunscreen on each other's backs. I felt like the odd man out, just some guy sitting in the corner pretending not to be drowning in his own thoughts. One of the resort staff members, a young woman maybe in her mid-20s, came over while we were anchored. She was chatty, clearly trying to make small talk with the guests. She asked where I was from, how long I'd been staying, if I was enjoying the trip. Then she smiled and said, "Your wife must really love it here. She's always so happy when I see her around, especially with her friend." I froze. "Friend?" The girl nodded casually, adjusting her visor. "Tall guy wears a baseball cap? They're always laughing by the pool late at night. I thought maybe he was a relative of yours or family friend. They look close." I don't even remember what I said back. Something non-committal, probably. My ears were ringing too loudly to focus. Close. Happy. Always laughing. With him. Not me. It was one thing to suspect, another to witness, but to have a total stranger casually confirm it, like it was just an open fact, made my stomach drop into the ocean. The rest of the excursion was a blur. I floated above coral reefs, fish darting under me, the sun burning my back, but all I could think about was how my wife had turned me into a fool in front of strangers who probably knew more about my marriage than I did. By the time we got back to the resort, humiliation had curdled into something sharper. Anger. Because now I wasn't just paranoid. I wasn't just suspicious. I knew. By the fourth day, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Every glance at her phone, every casual smile she threw my way, every careless excuse for disappearing pushed me closer to the edge. We were at the resort's main pool area, surrounded by families and couples. Kids were shrieking, waiters were juggling trays, and the sun was brutal enough to make everyone squint. She was lying on a chaise, sunglasses on, phone in hand, scrolling like she didn't have a care in the world. I walked over, fists clenching in my pockets. I wanted to make a scene. I needed her to feel even a fraction of the humiliation and anger she'd been letting me stew in. "We need to talk. Now." My voice came out louder than I expected. She looked up, exasperated, like I just interrupted her vacation plans. "Oh my God, not here." "Really?" she snapped, tossing her phone onto her towel. "You're insane. We can talk later." "No," I said, stepping closer. "We're talking right here. I've had enough of your lies, your sneaking around, your friends that aren't really friends." "Who is he?" "The guy you've been meeting behind my back." Her face turned red. From anger. From embarrassment. I don't know. Around us, other guests were starting to notice. Couples paused mid-conversation. Kids stopped splashing. A lifeguard gave me a sideways glance, clearly debating whether he should intervene. "I don't have to tell you anything," she shouted. "You're acting like a crazy person. Can't you just enjoy your stupid vacation for 2 seconds?" "Enjoy," I yelled back. "You're sleeping with someone else while I'm stuck here pretending everything's fine. You think this is normal? This is our marriage, and you've been ripping it apart." Her voice cracked for a second, just a flicker, before she spun around and stormed off toward the lobby, flipping her towel over her shoulder. I stood there, chest heaving, sun baking my back, feeling every eye on me. And then the lifeguard finally spoke. "Sir, maybe you should take this inside, into another room, behind closed doors." But even there, I knew the damage wasn't just private. It was public. My humiliation had been served poolside, under tiki umbrellas, in front of strangers who probably whispered about us for the rest of the afternoon. I realized in that moment, this vacation hadn't fixed anything. It had blown the door wide open, and there was no going back. That night I couldn't face her. Not after the pool scene. Not after the public argument, the whispers, the stares. I dragged myself back to our hotel room, left the lights off, and just sat on the edge of the bed staring at the floor. Everything came crashing down all at once. The texts, the late-night sneaking, the laughs she shared with him instead of me, the casual way she dismissed my feelings as paranoia. All the little signs I had ignored suddenly became impossible to ignore. I didn't cry at first. Couldn't. My body was numb, like some part of me had already checked out of this marriage. But the longer I sat there, the more I felt it, raw, suffocating grief. The kind of grief that makes you want to scream and curl up on the floor at the same time. I pictured all the moments we'd shared. Vacations past, birthdays, random lazy Sundays. And I realized she had been keeping this part of herself, the part that wanted someone else, entirely separate from me. Like I wasn't enough. Like I never had been. I thought about what the strangers had seen, the bartender, the pool staff, the guy at the bar who had accidentally tipped me off. People I didn't even know had witnessed my humiliation, had seen the cracks in my marriage laid bare in front of the world. I hit the wall with my fist, hard enough to hurt. Not because I was angry at the pain, but because I felt powerless. Humiliation and betrayal mixed together into a thick, heavy knot that I couldn't shake. And then I thought about the rest of the trip. About spending the remaining days pretending nothing happened while sitting beside her, while she smiled and laughed like everything was fine. The thought made bile rise in my throat. I couldn't do it. For the first time in years, I realized something crucial. This vacation wasn't about fixing things. It was about facing the truth I had been running from, that the marriage I thought I had was gone. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy clarity. No amount of denial, no forced smiles or fun activities could change what had happened. My wife wasn't just distant or careless. She had chosen someone else, right there in the middle of our vacation, while I played the role of clueless husband. I packed a small bag. Just essentials, a few clothes, toiletries, my laptop. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew I couldn't stay in the same room, in the same resort, under the same sun, pretending. I told her I was stepping out to explore the town. She rolled her eyes. "Seriously? You're still sulking?" she said, voice dripping with irritation. I ignored her. I didn't argue. I just walked out. As I wandered through the narrow streets of the seaside town, I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. Grief for the marriage that had ended, for the years of trust betrayed. Relief that I didn't have to tiptoe around her lies anymore. Relief that I could finally think for myself, without the constant pressure of pretending everything was fine. That night, I called a lawyer back home. I didn't wait for her to explain, for her to apologize, for her to justify anything. I accepted what I'd seen, what I'd felt, and I started planning my next steps. I didn't confront her again that night. I didn't need to. The confrontation had already happened in my mind, in the poolside argument, in the dark hallway, in the late-night walk she didn't know I followed. The truth was clear, and now it was time to act. For the rest of the vacation, I kept my distance. I walked alone on the beach at sunrise, ate meals by myself, and allowed myself to grieve. I didn't need to make dramatic gestures or public scenes anymore. I had my clarity, my decision, and a path forward that didn't include her betrayal. By the last day, I wasn't angry in the same way anymore. I was sad, yes, and a little hollow, but I was also free to leave a marriage that had already left me, free to start thinking about life without the constant anxiety, humiliation, and lies. By the time I boarded the plane home, I had a lot of time to think. The vacation hadn't been a reset. It hadn't been a fresh start. It was a magnifying glass. Every crack, every lie, every tension in our relationship had been exposed, stretched out under the sun, and broadcasted, in small ways, to everyone around us. I realized something painfully obvious. Vacations can't fix a broken relationship. You can't escape the problems by changing the scenery. You can't suddenly force love, trust, or communication where there's already a void. All you do is give yourself more hours, more moments, more clarity to see exactly how bad things are. I also learned that ignoring signs, making excuses, hoping for the magic reset, is dangerous. I had been ignoring red flags for months. Her distance, the careless lies, the dismissive attitude. I wanted to believe that a week in paradise could repair years of damage. Couldn't. And the most important lesson? Self-respect has to come first. Watching her flirt, lie, and sneak away made me realize how much of myself I had been giving away just to keep the peace. The vacation didn't just reveal her betrayal. It revealed the betrayal of my own boundaries, my own trust, and my own dignity. I still feel pain. I still feel humiliation. But I also feel clarity, and for the first time in months, maybe even years, I feel like I have control over my life again. I know now that fixing a relationship isn't about escaping reality. It's about facing it. Honestly, openly, and without pretending that distance or sun or sand can do the work for you. I left the resort a day early. I didn't pack up her things, didn't wait for her to notice. I just walked out with my bag, checked out, and took a taxi to the airport. The ride was quiet, the driver humming along to some island music I barely registered. Outside the window, the ocean stretched endlessly, mocking and indifferent. On the plane, I stared at my reflection in the tiny oval window. The man looking back at me was exhausted, raw, and older than he had been a week ago. But he was also alive in a way I hadn't been for months. Aware, clear-headed, free from the suffocating tension of lies and betrayal. I thought about the marriage, about the years we'd shared, the moments that had been real, the ones that had been overshadowed by secrecy and carelessness. I mourned what was lost, yes, but I also realized that grieving didn't mean staying. It didn't mean enduring. By the time we landed, I had made my choice. The marriage was over. I didn't need another fight, another secret, another public humiliation. I needed a future where I could trust myself to respect my own worth. Looking back, I also realized that vacations can't fix failing relationships. They can't erase months, sometimes years of neglect, dishonesty, or emotional distance. They only provide clarity. They shine a harsh light on what you've been pretending isn't there. I'm still healing, still figuring out how to trust, how to forgive. Not her, not yet myself, but the reality that life sometimes reveals ugly truths when you least want them. And maybe one day I'll take another vacation. But next time, I'll remember. Paradise can't fix a lie, and sun-drenched beaches can't replace honesty. For anyone reading this, if your gut tells you something's wrong, don't wait for a reset. Face it, protect yourself, and don't rely on a vacation to save what's already broken.